Chapter 7. The Town Hall. X-I Zoomovoid. X had a crisis to handle. The election was a distraction and he knew it. While the Hermits bickered and pranked, the Abyss and Technoblade would only grow stronger. He didn't know what their plan was, but they hadn't made a move in the week since the election had started. He had a plan, though. Wells Knight wasn't at the shopping district when X had been dethroned, so he was more likely to help with the necessary investigation. Wells lived in a series of small white and pink houses in the woods. The pink roofs and white frames made them easy to spot. If Wells wanted to hide, he was doing a bad job of it. Of course, X knew that Wells never wanted to hide. He loved his friends, he was just really busy. X trekked through the woods and emerged in the clearing that contained Wells's area. He went to the main house, the biggest of the bunch, and knocked on the door. The door immediately fell off its hinges. X didn't think he knocked that hard, but apparently it was only hanging on by a thread. "Hello?" X said, concerned. He grew more anxious when he actually got a good look inside the house. It was in a total state of disarray. Wells's potted plants were smashed to pieces. The rug was all torn up, and there were scuff marks everywhere on the floor. There were clear signs of a struggle. X cautiously entered the house, being sure to keep the doorway within his eyesight at all times. If he looked away, whoever did this might be able to slip out past him if they were still there. He also decided to go quiet. He didn't need to constantly project his location to the attacker. Could this have been Technoblade? No, it was too sloppy. Too many obvious clues. Technoblade was a skilled swordsman, but from the looks of these marks, the attacker had lost their sword early on in the fight, and the struggle devolved into a hand-to-hand combat. As X moved through the main room of the house, the ceiling above him burst into flames. X dove away from the burning wood as the ceiling collapsed, and the burnt chunk of it landed on the floor in front of him. Standing on top of the ruined chunk was someone who had looked exactly like Wells, but it wasn't him. Wells Knight was a blonde man wearing a freshly polished knight's armor with his helmet always letting the other hermits see his jovial face and deep blue eyes. The man that stood before X on this piece of rubble had bloodshot red eyes. His armor was rusted and dirty and creaked and squeaked with each movement. Instead of Wells's normal joyous British accent, he spoke with a distorted, deeper voice, almost as if it was incomplete.
"Your friend is gone."
The imposter held up the unconscious body of Wells Knight and threw him down in front of X. "Wells!" X shouted. Wells barely moved. He was still alive, just unconscious.
"Soon every other hermit will meet a fate similar to his."
"What are you?" X asked.
"I am Hell's Knight."
Hells promptly picked Wells up by his collar and began to drag him out of the house. X quickly realized that Wells's nether portal was outside. He was just going to take him to the nether and feed him to the beast. X leapt up and tackled Hell's Knight to the ground just outside the house. X drew his sword to kill the imposter, but he blocked the attack with one of his arm guards and twisted the sword out of X's hands. Hell's Knight kicks X off of him and tried to retreat with Wells back to the nether portal that was just a few meters away. X got up one more time just to see a massive black tentacle emerge from the portal and begin to flail around.
"Feed me,"
that familiar, disturbing voice said. Hells was almost at the portal. X had to think on his feet. He quickly crafted a series of sticks together to make a small, fragile ladder and threw it like a boomerang at Hells. The ladder hit Hells in the side of the head, knocking him to the ground. X took his chance to grab Wells and drag him out of reach. Hells quickly got back up and prepared to reclaim his prize, but the tentacle from the portal grabbed him and began to wave him around in the air.
"No,
He shouted.
not me. You need him."
Hell's Knight screamed as the monster dragged him through the portal, leaving only X to fill in the blanks of what happened to that creature. Wells regained consciousness a few minutes later. The first words out of his mouth were, "What happened? Did that cloning machine work?" "You used a cloning machine?" X exclaimed. "Yeah, I got it off Etho." Wells might have just given X his first lead in his investigation. What business does Etho have making a cloning machine that would make evil versions of the hermits? That was the question that needed answering. "Come on," X said. "It's time we figured out what those monsters are planning." Technoblade. Idiots! All of them! That unholy beast had brought the wrong knight through the portal. Technoblade managed to save Hell's Knight from the abyss. Clones wouldn't provide much nutrients, otherwise they would have been cloning hermits this whole time. No, it needed to be the real thing. The abyss had grown stronger since its feasting off of Doc, but not as strong as Techno thought. It had gotten smarter, almost being able to form full sentences. As a result, the monsters it controlled got smarter. Techno was now able to start to put armor on the wither skeletons and piglins. He didn't have enough, so the armor would only be used on his elite units. The monsters also gained limited speech. The skeletons, of course, didn't speak as they had no vocal cords, but the piglins, oink, was all they could say. The word oink. They were just the pawns, and Hells was the knight. The abyss was the king, weak, and the peace Techno needed to protect. He was the queen, the most powerful and mobile in the game. His army was growing, but it wouldn't last in the day. He needed to feed the abyss so it could bring about the eternal night. Nightlight. Light was a skilled seamstress. She knew what colors worked together and what materials to use. She used those same skills to build her house. Light sat on her bed as she carefully sewed the cuffs onto a new suit for Scar as he held his arm out for her. Ow! Scar exclaimed. Perhaps carefully wasn't the proper word. Well, if you would stop twitching, this wouldn't hurt, Light pointed out. I have an itchy nose. Then use your other hand. Oh yeah, Scar said as he used his free hand to scratch his nose. Okay, done. Light said as she removed her needle and stood up to admire her work. The full suit was a masterpiece, of striped black and white pants with a purple jacket. Perfect for standing out in a crowd. I feel like I need a monocle, Scar joked. Right on cue, Light pulled out a monocle out of her pocket and handed it to Scar. He burst out laughing as he placed the monocle over his right eye. I look great, thank you. You care about the hermits, I care about your appearance. The two smiled at each other, and Scar looked like he was about ready to leave when they both heard a noise. Damage control! Damage control! B-dubs burst through the door, sounding like he had been shouting damage control the whole way there. Scar, I've been looking everywhere for you. We have... B-dubs saw the outfit and gasped. Yes, perfect. Where did you get this outfit? Light sheepishly raised her hand. Hi. That was me. Oh yes, B-dubs shouted, loud enough to shake the nether. This is perfect for your comeback. Comeback? Scar asked. Scar, your diamond licking habit is out and it's killing us. What items a man licks that he owns in the privacy of his own house is his business. It doesn't matter. The people think it's disgusting. But tomorrow, we're building the town hall with Grian, right? Right. So you want the people to see Scar taking initiative and reaching out across party lines in order to show that he's a mayor who will get things done, Light chimed in. Yes, B-dubs exclaimed. She gets it! I can help get you some materials. You happen to have 9 stacks of sandstone? B-dubs asked somewhat sarcastically. Normal or red? Light replied, confidently folding her arms. B-dubs stared at her in awe. Normal, he said. Grian. Grian flew across the nether roof. Today was the day he was supposed to build the hermit town hall with B-dubs and Scar. His thoughts turned to designs and how tall he should make the first floor windows. That was until he saw a long device on the nether roof. The signs were gone. The signs that read, under construction, were no more, and Grian couldn't be happier to figure out what the purpose of the machine was. He saw a button on the center of the front-facing wall and immediately pressed it. If it was a button, Grian was going to press it. The machine made a series of beeping noises, and Grian noticed that some of the lights, which had previously shut off, turned back on once again, one by one. The machine then spit out a purple wristband. Grian picked up the wristband and put it on, confused as to what he had just done. He then noticed a book positioned open on a lectern just under the button. Perhaps I should read the book first, Grian said to himself. Grian began to page through the book, and began to understand the concept behind the button. The book began, Hello, this is the button. The button needs to be kept alive by being pressed. As time presses on, the lights will go out one by one and descend into different colored zones from purple all the way to red. When you press the button, you will receive a wristband of the corresponding color of whatever zone the light was in. Your wristband color relates to your status. People with purple wristbands should be mocked. Good day. Grian stumbled back in horror, realizing that he had just gotten the lowest tier of wristband. It would only be a matter of time before the others found out and decided to mock him. He would be returning to the button soon to try his luck at the wristbands again. For now, he had a town hall to build. Boss Beth. Beth laughed all the way back to Light's house. She wanted to go to sleep, but she really wanted to tell Light about the day she had. She, Grian, and Mumbo had stayed up all night to prank people with the song Grumbot made. They probably lost a few votes that way, but they were laughing too hard to care. Beth saw Light building a small wheat field in the back of her house. The sun was setting, and it shone perfectly in Light's tied-back hair. She looked beautiful as she swung her hoe and dragged open another line of dirt, planting more seeds. The field was half built in front of her. She had sparsely grown wheat crops around her ankles. Beth walked over to Light. Light, she shouted. Light took notice and immediately dropped her hoe. Was she excited or annoyed? Beth was still too much on a high to worry. I just had the greatest day, Beth began. Mine was pretty good too. You go first. No, you. Okay. Beth paused. I'm voting for Mumbo. Beth didn't know how to expect Light to react, but it wasn't with an expression that was both confused and a little bit irritated. Beth, Mumbo's an airhead, Light said. Scar's actually trying to look out for us. But that airhead is a blast. We scared B-dubs half to death with a song that was generated by a robot we built. I helped Scar get a new outfit. He's going to lead us against that monster. Beth reconsidered her words. She'd been selfish. She was so focused on dealing with her own trauma that she never considered Light's. That thing hurt both of them, and they had both watched Doc die. It seemed that Light read her look. Don't let me tell you how to vote, Light said, taking Beth's hands. You should vote for who makes you happy. Can I vote for you then? Beth asked. Light giggled and started blushing. Wait, she was blushing. Did she like her too? Maybe it was the sunset. Maybe it was the way Light was holding Beth's hands. Maybe it was the pesky bird singing in the background. But Beth knew it was now or never. She leaned in and kissed her best friend. Light seemed surprised, but immediately started to kiss her back. It was the greatest moment Beth had ever experienced before Light suddenly pulled away, her face full of red. I have to go, she said. Light ran off back into her house and out of sight. Beth's head swirled with questions. Why did she kiss her back? Did she hate her now? Who would she vote for? And where was her door? Good times with Scar. Scar felt fancy in his new suit. He landed on a small hill on the edge of the island containing the shopping district and set down his shulker boxes. Grian and B-dubs landed soon after. Are we ready to start this build? Grian asked. Yes, said B-dubs. After a nap. B-dubs promptly pulled out of bed and laid it down before climbing in and preparing himself to sleep the coming night away. Graham promptly kicked out B-dubs' bed from under him. "Hey!" B-dubs screamed. "I need to avoid phantoms!" B-dubs tried to climb back into his repositioned bed before Grian kicked it out from under him once more, as Scar laughed to himself. "Hey, you owe me some doors!" "So you want to get this build started?" Grian said, desperate to change the subject. After B-dubs had his nap, the trio got to work on building up the town hall. They used the classic red brick wall with sandstone highlights building palette. With the help of the hill, the finished product towered over the shopping district, with its domed roof bringing the whole thing together nicely. They didn't decorate the inside. That was the job for the future mayor. The one thing they did bring in was all the diamond blocks the hermits had paid for their land. They formed them into a massive diamond throne that towered over the main room once you walked in. It was the ultimate symbol of power, and Scar wanted it more than anything.